Hello, once again. Good evening, everybody. And welcome to our Facebook Live four-part info session on breaking the stigma of mental health. My name is Abdul Besima. I'm the chairperson for the Health and Wellness Committee of our African Leadership Group. Tonight, we have here with us Nancy, who is going to be our professional here. We are discussing having a conversation with our youth today. Nancy, can you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Nancy Medina. I am a school social worker for high school here in the Denver metro area. Thank you for having me, especially because this topic is something very passionate that I'm about, and especially because it's time that we bring awareness to mental health. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And now we have to get the introduction from our vibrant youths as we have here today. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Javan Lubanga, and I'm a 10th grader at CRA Compassion Road Academy.
My name is Farmaja. I am a 9th grader at Colorado Early Colleges in Venice.
My name is Mamadou Watt. I'm currently a 10th grader at George Washington High School.
My name is Hulai Sai, or Almi. I am a junior at KIPP Northeast Denver Leadership Academy.
Wonderful. Take over now.
Perfect.
Nancy, yeah.
First of all, I want to thank you for being here, and I want you guys to know that it's very important to hear from your voices and exactly be very genuine on how you feel on this topic, because a lot of parents and a lot of students out there would also need to hear what you have to say, right? So I want to start off first by asking you, what is mental health for you? Who would like to ask?
Well, for me, I think mental health is, well, kind of putting me on the spot, but I guess if I had to put it in words, I would say just mental well-being and being aware of your mental state, both emotional and everything, and then being able to know. Oh, sorry. I was gonna
Thank you. What is mental health for any of you three? What does it mean to you?
I would have to agree with Ami. I feel like that's how you feel mentally, emotionally, physically, and being able to tie your emotional with how you act physically and seeing if your actions are different from previous, and just making sure that you're keeping up with your happiness and your emotions.
Absolutely. Anybody else?
I think it's just your mental well-being, because if you're not emotionally prepared, if you're not, just in the right state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I think mental health is just making sure that your mind is in a state where you can operate freely, without having worry or just...
Absolutely. Thank you for your answers. I'm curious to hear from your point of view within the adolescents and with your friends and your peers. What's mental health between you guys? Do you guys talk about it? Do you see importance to it? What is it like for you guys?
With me and my friends, mental health is not a discussion we really have. It's if we're talking about it, we're going to be weak to each other. Yeah.
Okay.
Between me and my friends, our relationship with mental health is very strong, I would say. We always make sure to check up on each other and make sure that we're all doing well, and if there's anything we need to get off our chest to talk about that we can't go and talk to our parents or our siblings or anyone about, we always make sure we always are that space for each other. So I feel like me and my friends have a very good relationship with mental health with each other.
Nice. That's good. And then I'm curious to see, where would you think you heard the message, or where did you learn the message that talking about mental health is weakness?
I guess just growing up in a African household, anytime mental health comes up, your parents think it's nothing to worry about. You're just feeling something, it's gonna go away the next day. If there's nothing wrong with your health, it's really not a big problem.
And does it go away? Do your emotions go away like our parents say?
Sometimes, but most times, no.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another barrier we have, right?
Yeah.
When we have two cultures that we're dealing with, that's an extra additional stressor that we have at home, because we have one mentality at home and then a mentality different at school. How do we juggle that?
Well, for me, I think it's always about finding the right balance, knowing that there is a stark difference between the two worlds, but finding that balance, like that middle ground where you're gonna meet, knowing that you sometimes you kind of have to code switch. You have to like, in a way, you have to code switch to be able to talk to different people and like meet in that middle is what I would say, because the same way you would talk to your friends is not the same way you would talk to your parents, because their mindsets are very different. They come from completely different generations, so it's really important to be mindful of that and knowing that, not taking it too personally. I'm talking like family and parents wise, just because the way they grew up and the way we're growing up is so different, and their world back then and what it is now is so different, and we're like shifting completely from what they know.
Great, yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, to have the balance, like Ami said, also being able to like take your community and values from home and be able to instill them in your relationships outside of home and outside of school. Like, I feel like, yes, you have to have a certain amount of respect that you would have for a different respect you have for your parents than you would for your friends, but also being able to mix and be able to have the same like amount of fun and values with each other.
Yes. So now that we're on the topic of immigrant communities, that we come from different backgrounds, right? And our parents come from different upbringings. If you had the chance, genuinely and authentically, to give your parents, and maybe not just your parents, other parents, advice on how to talk to youth in this era, what would it be?
You went through it, your kids are also going through it too. Just because it went a certain way for you does not mean that's how it's going to be for them. Just sit down, have a conversation with them, meet one-on-one, find a middle ground, and then see where you guys can meet, and know that there will be differences, but that's also okay, because you're completely different people, completely different generation, completely different era, and that's completely fine. Change is not always a bad thing.
Absolutely. And then we have to be, life is always changing, right?
Yeah.
So we have to adapt to change. Anybody else?
To also have an open mind, I would say, like be willing to hear the different perspectives and be willing to help your child grow with those different perspectives, I would say. Like, don't be so closed off and say, well, that's not how I was raised, so you can't be raised that same way, or you can't be going through the same thing. So always have an open mind to different opinions and perspectives.
Got it. And how about, Mamadou, what would you say to a parent out there that is telling you that mental health is weakness, but then you yourself know that emotions are real?
I guess telling the parent that things have changed from how it was when they're, and there's more stress for at least a kid now. School's getting harder for us. Friends being able to fit in, and that code switching that Julio was talking about.
Go ahead. Were you going to say something?
No.
Oh, okay. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that too, because sometimes as parents, I'm a parent too, and I kind of grew up in the middle. We don't understand that for us, life didn't move so fast, and as it's moving for this adolescent age, right? You have social media that you have to worry about, cyberbullying that you have to worry about, right? What would you say about cyberbullying?
Cyberbullying, that's like a really bad problem right now at schools, especially during at the end of school. A lot of people are trying to get rid of all the problems. If they can't say it to face, they go to the internet because they're safe. They can say whatever they want. People can hide behind the keyboard, not knowing who they can't be hit or anything. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Do you guys have an idea? Anything out there? Any creative idea that you can come up with that would help stop or diminish cyberbullying?
I guess keeping the platform more responsible for it. Asking the platform for more ways to stop cyberbullying and being able to catch it.
Accountability, definitely.
right? Yeah, accountability for the social media platforms, that they themselves put it out there for them,
Yeah.
right? And we need to have more regulation, is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Another topic that I hear a lot at schools that kids are worried about is gun violence. Is that something that amongst your peers you're worried about? And what are your thoughts?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like gun violence is a very, very big problem in our society, and it's become something that everyone's so used to, and that everyone is just, oh, there's a shooting nearby. It's like, oh, okay, like, let's go on lockdown. But no one is taking it as seriously anymore, and I feel like that's a huge problem that we're having in our society.
And the way schools are trying to, I guess, prevent it by adding officers is making it more scary, at least for a black student. Thinking, oh, there's a cop there. Are they going to follow me home? Or am I going to get shot today?
Very good point. It adds a layer of complication, especially to our minorities and our people of color, right?
Yeah. I have many friends that don't come to school because they're scared.
It's a very real fear, definitely.
So creating a safer environment is something very important.
Yeah.
And if you can tell adults, how would we create a safer environment
I guess
from you guys that are actually living this? Because it's serious.
I feel like we can't necessarily, like, we can put blame on the schools for, like, because I don't feel like putting more officers in schools is the right way to go about it, because it's making not just students of color have fear, but all students in general having fear, because it's just having that in your mind that, oh, there's at least 10 to 15 people on campus that have weapons on them, whether it be a taser, a gun, whatever the case may be. So it's just fear in general. But I also feel like the schools are doing their best and trying to find different solutions to end the gun violence. But I feel like it also comes down to, like, the people who are making laws and our people in the Senate, because they're saying, like, oh, you can't buy a gun until you're 21, 18, but that's not the only way people are getting guns. They're getting them from their relatives, finding them in the middle of the street. Like, it's just, there's a lot more to just this. We can't just blame the schools for putting officers, because they're just trying to find the best way to solve the issue, and they're exploring different solutions.
So what I'm hearing is collectively as a society, not just the schools, but the parents, legislation, government, we should all work on this together.
Yeah.
Very good point. You mentioned something about this situation is creating fear and anxiety.
Yeah.
How comfortable do you guys feel, or do you even know who your mental health team is at school, and can you go to them?
Currently at my school, we have plenty. We have, this year, they just installed a Denver Health Clinic. A student can go in there if you want to talk about mental health. Our school has their own counseling team there. Also.
Okay. Were you going to say something?
Well, for me at my school, we personally don't have that, and if we do, I am not aware of it. I do, however, have like a counselor, but that's like she's my personal counselor, not like the school's. So I can't really speak for other people, because I know that if something like that is bothering me, I can go and talk to her. But that's not the case for so many other people. And while there are some schools who have like these consoles and like these services available, it's not available to the masses of like most Denver students. And I feel like it is so incredibly important, especially if it's getting closer and closer to home. Just like there's been even today, there was even another shooting over here in Denver by the Green Valley Ranch area. And it's getting closer and closer. But these kids, they've become desensitized to it. Or if not, like my little baby sister, she was saying, she's like, it's not that close to me, so I'm not that scared. But then in my head, I was thinking, it's within a 10-mile radius. You never know where it's gonna be next, you know?
Yeah.
And this is like, she's literally in second grade.
Yeah. I feel like some of our schools need to do a way better job of having mental health advocates and having better counselors, because a lot of students don't trust the counselors. At my school, we have a very big school, and it's one singular counselor who's there. And a lot of the students don't feel comfortable going to her because they can't relate to, because everyone has their different experience with gun violence and how shootings affect them. For me personally, we had a shooting a couple weeks ago. It was in a 2-mile radius. It was like 5 minutes away from us. And we were on lockdown for about an hour and 30 minutes. And I know for me, the anxiety or the fear didn't set in until after the fact. But I know for some of my friends, they didn't feel comfortable going and talking to the mental health advocates because everyone's experience is different. And certain mental health advocates can only relate to one experience or one person because they don't have the experience in their past to relate to everyone. So I feel like we need to do way better at finding people to talk to our students and make them feel more comfortable.
So we need more mental health providers of minority background, of people of color.
Yeah,
right?
different experiences, different races, different religions, all of the above.
And when we don't have that, how do we help? How do you help your peers? How do you know how to identify if somebody's going through a crisis? Your friends, how can you tell?
I feel like it just depends on the patterns. You want to see how long ago was this situation, or if it's a certain situation that was very big that happened to the whole community, you want to look at how they're acting, if certain things that they really look forward to doing, like going to the gym, has changed, if their demeanor, their happiness has, if anything has changed, that's a very big factor. I feel like you should sit down and ask your friend or whoever it may be if they're doing okay, because you always want to make sure you're checking up on your people.
We always have to keep in connection, right? That's what I'm hearing, absolutely. And how about when we have peers that we know that have the mentality that if you show weak emotion, you're weak? Is there any way that you can tell? Like, for example, you're telling me amongst your friends, right? You guys don't talk about it because this is a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
Do you have an ability to tell when one of your friends is off, or what is the sign for you that one of your friends is off?
For me, it's like if they stop showing school, stop coming to school, I just usually text them and say, "You good? Anything going on?" Just to check up on them. Yeah, that's our way. Our friend group show support, I guess. But like talking straight up about mental health, no, we don't.
You don't. Do you feel we need to?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's important, right?
I know he said they don't really talk about mental health, but if you really listen to what he's saying, they're having that conversation even though without the title. Because if you're checking on someone, whether or not you're trying to show that you care, you're still caring for their mental health. I guess it's just like the whole title and the stigma around mental health that may seem like the word itself weak, but I think what our generation is so good at doing is being emotional and having like showing that emotional side of us and the support and having to constantly check up on our friends, all of that. It's good. It's like a good sign of mental health. Like we're getting there. The discussion is there, whether or not people want to accept it or not, but it's still there and it's taking the right steps as well.
We just need to expand on it more. Because
Right.
right now it's very little, it's very bare. We try to act like we're not addressing mental health, but I feel like
Yeah,
everyone
we
is
are.
at the bare minimum. We just need to expand
It's
on
in
it.
their own way.
I'm really glad you brought that up because absolutely there is a mental health stigma behind it. And when we hear mental health or emotional intelligence, what does that really mean to us, right? And so we're like, no, I don't need any of that stuff, or no, I don't do mental health. But in reality, we're actually doing it. So you are right. Like if you're checking in on your friends, that is mental health. But we just think like that's something different. That's something that we don't do just because we don't talk about it in our families, right?
Yeah.
How would you bring mental health to your families where it's not spoken about? So how do you recommend others to bring into their homes?
Well, I know for me, I'm very lucky. In my house, we all make sure we always check up on each other. Me and my sisters have a very good relationship of if we can see something's off between us or our relationships, we always make sure everyone's doing okay. But I feel like in other households, just pay attention to the patterns and make sure that they're just, it's always about the patterns. If someone is always doing something, or if whenever you see someone, they're enthusiastic, and all of a sudden that switches, and it's a very, like, for a long period of time that switches, you can tell something is going on. So always make sure you're checking up on the patterns and just seeing if they're changing certain behaviors that they are usually very excited about doing.
And on that note, when you're starting to see those patterns, do you guys know who to go to? A trusted adult? Who would you call to get that help that your peer needs when you know that it's above and beyond what you can offer?
I think a lot of times it's harder to like bring that conversation because I know people like this in my life where the mood swings are so intense, and I noticed that. I'm like, this is not normal. You can't be this happy one day or like a few minutes and then just go to being extremely mad. There's something going on, but they don't want to talk about it. And then the problem is, if you bring it up, they think that you think there's something wrong with them, or they get defensive. But then if you go to an adult, they can't even really do much about it either. So now for them, the situation has been like blown up, and you kind of find yourself in a dilemma and you don't know what to do. Personally, I'm not sure what I would do in that situation, because like I said, it's happening. I want to say something, but I don't know how they're gonna take it. But then if I tell an adult too, I don't know how they would take that as well, especially if they're like really closed off and they're not like good at communicating and all of that. So it's definitely difficult. However, what I do think is good is online therapy, because it lessens the guilt that, or I guess the burden of having to like talk to someone physically face to face. So it feels less burdensome to them, because it doesn't feel like they're being vulnerable to someone, even though they are. And I think that's good, like the whole virtual therapy thing that people are like investing more into. I think that's really good.
Makes it easier, right?
Yeah.
To talk to the computer, even though there's another person on the other side, than face to face, right? How do you guys take care of your mental health?
I know for me, it comes down to just doing things that make me happy, or spending time with people who bring up my energy. So, like, me personally, I love to listen to music and sing, so I feel like that's something that brings my energy up. Spending time with my sisters or my best friends, that's something that brings my energy up. I just do things that put me in a good mood, so you just have to figure out what's a good hobby that can take your mind off the stresses for some time.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, it's alone time. I know it's like usually people spending it with family and stuff, but me, it's like alone time, as well as my religion, just taking the time to reflect, I guess meditate and all of that. That has proven itself really useful in the past, and I've been like doing that more in my life, and I've seen definitely like a change. Practicing gratitude, journaling, all of that, because sometimes just being in a space where you're comfortable being by yourself, like discussing things with yourself, like I will talk to myself and I'm like, this is a problem, I need to address it, where not so many people are involved, but I'm able to solve it by myself. And then just being more involved in my community, my religion, all of that, God and everything, that has like really helped me. So I think that's really important.
Absolutely.
For me, it's just like having a deep talk with myself or with a friend, saying, I'm having this kind of problem. Do you have any ideas, a way to solve it? Or to myself, just letting myself know the problems I'm having and not ignoring them, and trying to get it done right away instead of pushing it back.
So addressing them. How about you, John?
Something very recently that I've started doing again, roller skating. I actually went out and bought a $300 pair, and so skating is something that I do regularly to just, it's something I enjoy doing, and it tends to calm me, and
And help you out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that each one of you shares something different, because this gives our audience an opportunity to see that mental health and taking care of ourselves is very different, and it's very individualized, right? Just because one thing works for me doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for my peer. So just being there and being able to figure out you, and you, like you said, what are your hobbies, right? What would you tell one of your peers who did not believe, is very strict on and just does not believe in mental health? How would you help them bring awareness to them?
I feel like you have to use examples in a way. Like, you can ask whoever it is, so when you're upset, what is something that lifts your spirit? And if they say, I don't know, whatever activity makes them happy, you could say that's, like, you have to use examples, and you have to make it fun for them to get into mental health. Like, the process might be long, because some people have very different beliefs, and they're headstrong about their beliefs. But I feel like if you keep persistent and you give different examples and make the examples fun, then you can make someone realize that they're actually participating in mental health without even knowing it.
And also like bringing them along with you. If you're meditating, call them over and they meditate with you. If you're talking to a counselor, bring them over also and to see how it's working and how it's affecting you.
So introducing them to other ideas, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anybody else?
I think it's like knowing how to cater to different people, because certain people, they won't listen to reason. Well, I guess not reason, but you have to be able to put yourself in their shoes, try to think the way that they think, and then try to find solutions that, like, if you're in that position, how would you want someone to approach you? Yeah, so just trying to cater to different people and their mindset. I guess, like, you can use psychology. Well, I'm, like, really into psychology, so I try to, like, do that. But, yeah, just the whole code thing, knowing how to, like, act around different people and how to cater to them.
Absolutely, nice. So on that note, let's say, in theory, we're having somebody who wants to bring awareness and mental health campaign to youth and adolescents, right? You guys are the experts. What would be the best approach for a campaign targeting adolescents? How would you like to receive that message, or most effective?
Well, for me and my peers, I know we're the type of people we don't like being talked at. So like sitting down and having someone talk at us about mental health would not be something we would be interested in. We like to be engaged and do certain activities that relate to whatever the topic is. So I feel like if you can plan an event that ties with mental health, but also having fun during that event, or having a certain activity where you get to talk to certain peers, just having it tie back to activities would make it easier to talk about mental health or any topic in general.
So engagement.
Yeah.
Any kind of engagement with activities, sports, arts, religion, spirituality. Good. Anything else?
I guess using our hobbies also. Like if your hobbies are video games, find a way to use mental health in video games.
I like that you said hobbies. I have a lot of students who tell me, I don't know, miss. I don't know what I like. How would you tell your peer, this is how you start to learn what you like? What would you tell a friend?
I know this is harder said. I mean, it's easier said than done. But I feel like you have to take the time to sit back and reflect on yourself and see the things that, like, when you're doing them or when you're spending time with certain people, does that lift your spirits? Like, it's hard to sit back and reflect, but I feel like that's really the only way you can find out what your hobbies are, what you like to do, who you like to spend time with. You have to sit down and actually think about it.
So what I'm hearing is that you're asking them to go within, to discover who you are first.
Yeah.
Right? And then figure out what aligns with who you are and what you like. That's a great answer. Anyone else?
Just like what she said and what you said, introspecting is so important, to look within yourself and reflect what are like key moments in my life where I felt the most joy, and where are some key moments in my life where I felt the most low. And finding out those low moments and those high moments is key, because you're able to put yourself in that position again, be like, this is how I felt when I was doing this, so I must be leaning more towards this. My heart is closer to this than it is to this. And then just, I guess, trying to like expand within that like field of whatever it was, and then just finding different things within that's gonna cater to you.
Yeah, I like that answer very much, especially because sometimes at this stage, what I'm seeing a lot at where I'm at is we're trying to follow our peers because we don't know who we really are, and we think that because of my peers finding joy in that, I'm going to find joy in that, and that's not necessarily true, right? And it's okay. It's okay, and we have to normalize it. It's okay that what I like, you're probably not going to like, and what you like, I'm probably not going to like, and we still have to have the ability to coexist and respect. How do you show respect for your peers and somebody who has a different belief system than you do when it comes to mental health?
It just comes down to respect, I feel like. It comes down to being able to hold your own and know that I have my values, you have your values. We can still come together and work and be friends or whatever the case may be, just knowing we disagree on certain things. It just comes down to having respect for that person, yourself, and respecting your values and morals and holding on to them.
And I guess just understanding where they're coming from, putting yourself in their shoes and seeing why they're thinking that way. You know.
Some respect, understanding, open communication. Do you have something to add?
Pretty much what they said. I guess just being open-minded, knowing that what you believe in is not necessarily what other people believe in, and that is okay. And acceptance also, accepting other people, knowing that even though you might not agree with their beliefs or whatever it is that they're doing, that you respect them as a person and you're able to have the dignity to just give them that respect that they deserve as a human being. And yeah, just if you have that, being open mind to people's beliefs and all of that, you're able to coexist with them.
Absolutely. Come on.
Remind me of the question.
How would you respect, or what would you do when you have a peer who does not agree with your belief system when it comes to respect to mental health? How do you go about that?
I'd say it's just like, kind of like what Fama said. You have your values, I have mine. And so we can just, agree to disagree.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that. Because we have to coexist in these times, right? What is it like, if you had to tell a parent, what is it like to be an adolescent and dealing with mental health? What would you tell the parents, the adults?
I would just say it's very different the things we deal with in mental health compared to what you deal with, because now the circumstances are different. And there are times like shootings, certain things weren't as big of a deal as they were then than as they are now. So it's more in our face than it was in their face. So we are going to deal with it differently than you are. So again, just keep an open mind and be willing to hear us out and support us when we need you the most.
So just showing up and providing space for you? Anything else you'd like to share?
I would say it's not that different. Well, like if I was speaking to my mom, I'm like, we're both humans. We both go through like social, emotional things. It's really not that different because the problems I'm going through, you most likely have already gone through. And though our approach to them might be different, the feelings are still the same. So just put yourself in that spot and realize that certain feelings are not good and you don't want to feel like that. So to know that you're feeling those things and to accept those feelings, and then always try to find ways to overcome them or talk through them, it's really important. We're both going through things. What I'm going through right now, you most likely already went through, whether you remember it or not. And yeah, it's really not that different.
So finding a common ground, is what you're saying, right? Finding a common ground, and then also not comparing the situations.
Yeah.
But more so maybe asking them to remember what it was like if they ever felt fear, if they ever felt sadness, if they ever felt anxiety, and maybe reminding them what that felt like, so that you guys can share a common ground on an emotion versus the situation, right? Because yes, definitely. Times have changed, right? And then you added another layer. I really want to go back to the immigrant community because it's very complicated. It's very complicated. How do we incorporate that? How do we have and bridge that communication with our parents who were raised very differently in a different country, and in another country now we're in here with whole set of new rules. How do we do that? How do you do that at home?
Well, as I said, my parents are very open-minded, so they try their best to adapt and understand what me and my sisters go through compared to what they go through. So I feel like, yes, their experience is different, and they might have different understandings and different solutions, but I feel like at the end of the day, it comes to being open-minded, being able to hear another person out, and being able to adapt whatever they have to say and take it in and let it resonate.
And I guess it just comes down to just understanding where they're coming from also.
So you as a youth also,
Mhm.
right? Seek to understand as
Yeah.
well, not just to be understood.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Anybody else?
So what I'm hearing here is that you guys would like your parent or the adult to listen to you, right? And try to understand you guys and your feelings and how things are going on right now, you know, compared to maybe how things went on their own time. And you also want to understand them too, you know, right?
It goes both ways.
Go both ways, okay, that's good.
So, and to add to that, at the end of the day, what we really are seeking is love and connection, right? Love and connection is really what we're seeking and what we're hearing here. And that's a tough conversation because how can we show love when maybe to our parents it wasn't shown to them? And sometimes it comes, do you ever feel like that responsibility falls on you and to teach your parents what you need to be or how you need to be loved?
I feel like we're all teachers and learners. So while our parents are teaching us certain things, we're also teaching our parents and reminding our parents of certain things as well. I wouldn't say it's a responsibility per se, because I feel like responsibility carries such like a negative thing. But I would feel like it's just like, I feel like it's a blessing personally, because you get to teach your parents and show them another way and help them stay open-minded and up to date on certain things that are changing in the world. So I feel like it's more of a blessing than a responsibility.
Thank you. I use responsibility because my students that I hear a lot, they feel like they're teaching their parents, where they feel like this is something they should just
Like a burden.
that they shouldn't have to teach them, or they're the child and they're the adult. That's why I ask how you feel about that. Anybody else would like to share their feelings or thoughts? How about this? Do you guys know where to go to, where to look for resources? As adolescents, where do we find help, professional help?
I feel like we all know where to look. It just depends on if we want to take the steps to get that help. Because everyone, I feel like most people can know where to look, or they have like the smallest idea of it. Like a simple Google search can help you find like a therapist or a mental health advocate. But it just depends on taking the steps to get the help.
And how do we get to those steps? Because you make a very good point, very valid point that yes, it's been out there, the resources are out there, but how do we encourage ourselves or somebody in need to actually access those resources, right?
To tell yourself that it's okay to not feel happy, or it's just okay to have all these different emotions, and that you have to support yourself and support what you're going through first. Like, yes, other people can support you, but it has to come from you first. You have to be willing to take the steps and be willing to say it's okay to not be okay, and have your back first before anyone else can help you.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, if you're not willing to do work,
Yeah.
you won't be able to get the help you need.
It's like what she said. I think it's like a whole pride and ego thing. A lot of us feel like if we take those steps necessary, we're like shattering our ego or pride, and it should not be like that. I think that whole mindset is really extremely detrimental, and if we don't find ways to like conquer them or like find ways to work around them, it's really gonna eat us up.
So how do we become vulnerable, right? Show vulnerability is what I'm hearing from you. That we need to be more vulnerable and normalize it, right? And to make it okay. Do you guys talk about it? Like, do you amongst your peers talk about vulnerability, and can you open up?
For me and my friend group, if we notice you started going through something, we can always just say something. No one's gonna make fun of you right then and there. It's not something. No one else goes up to you and saying, "Oh, are you okay? Is there something going on?"
So you have your ways of
Yeah,
checking in and
community,
finding out like what's going on, and finding your people, right?
Yeah.
a few weeks ago, what me and my friends did, where we went to the library, we were supposed to be studying, but we went into those like quiet rooms, and then I was like, you know what, we're gonna have a little therapy moment, because I'm like, we're always asking each other how we're doing, but we always just like, I'm fine, this, and then we force ourselves to be in that vulnerable position, and what happened was we actually ended up loving it so much that they were like, we need to do this again. We haven't done it again because we're all busy, but we force ourselves to be uncomfortable and get out of that situation and know that the people around are people who care about us. Like, we care for each other. Our friendship is so much more stronger than our ego or pride, or like for us to not see each other in that vulnerable state, and that it's completely okay. And it got us so much closer because we were able to like hear like our different, like all the different perspectives, and to think differently about each other, because like obviously you're going to show people what you want them to see, but if you're truly genuine with yourself and you are genuine with other people, it opens up so many like doors and everything, and it builds that connection and that good communication, which is so important.
Beautiful. So making a priority of it, right? Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. When you're able to do that and open up, how did you guys feel after opening up and sharing whatever you were carrying that was very heavy on in your heart?
It felt like a load had been lifted off of our shoulders. We were laughing about it. We were like, oh my God, that feels so good. Like, I feel uncomfortable, but in a good way. And then days after, we were talking about it, and we were like, we should make plans and all of that. So it was great. It was a good learning moment for us.
So you said some really key things. It's something that we're going to be uncomfortable, right? But very much needed. And when we're done being uncomfortable and done with the conversation, it's very well worth it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. It's like, I guess, that euphoric feeling. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that. Even though it was just like having a conversation and talking. It was very much needed.
Absolutely. It is very much needed amongst us peers, especially because adolescent years is sometimes can feel very lonely, and sometimes we feel like, or when I say we, I mean because my students share a lot of information with me, and they tell me things like they feel alone. They feel like they're the only ones that are going through these emotions. They're the only ones that are feeling anxiety, the only ones that are depressed because they see everybody else looking happy on social media. And it's hard. Tell me a little bit more about how you feel social media impacts our mental health.
Social media, I feel like for us teenagers at least, it's a very big part that impacts our mental health. And I feel like we all need to take the time to sit down and reflect and see how much we're letting social media get to us. Like, some of us, I know, we sit down and we spend so much time scrolling on TikTok or doing streaks on Snapchat or whatever the case may be, and we don't realize how much is taking a toll on us. We take so much time sitting down and thinking, what is someone gonna think if I post this picture, if I post this video, instead of just saying, oh, I'm happy with this content, oh, let me post it for me. I feel like everyone needs to take a step back and just give social media a break every now and then. Like, take the time to go and look at your screen time and try to reduce the time you're spending on social media apps.
Important to detox from social media, right?
And I guess not comparing yourself to other people. If you see someone like playing basketball, don't thinking you can't be better than that person. Or seeing someone that looks better than you, say, oh, they look better than me, I can never compare to this person.
Right, absolutely, right? Because we shouldn't compare ourselves to others. We can only compare ourselves to ourselves, right? Because we all have different abilities, different skills, different talents. So it's very important to acknowledge that. And then also, what we don't realize on social media is that what you're seeing, that happy moment, in our brains, what we think is, oh, that person's happy all the time, because our brain only sees that. When in reality, we're only seeing a captured moment.
It's like a highlight reel of our lives.
Exactly. We don't get to see the whole picture. We don't see that we all have problems. I bet that if we sat here and we dumped all of our problems, we would know that others have it probably worse, or maybe a problem that I don't want, and then you go back and you're like, you know what, I think I'm going to stay with my problem, right? Because we're constantly thinking and comparing. Like you said, Mamadou, that you're not supposed to compare to others, right? But to yourself. Absolutely. Yeah. I wanted to ask you guys how you feel about therapy. Is that something that if you feel like you would need it, would you seek it out?
Yeah, if I felt like I was really at that point where I couldn't handle the stress or the anxiety and I really needed therapy, I would take the time to sit down with my parents and say, this is how I'm feeling. I feel like this is what I need to better myself and make myself feel better. And I would express it to them and ask them to help me find better solutions through therapy or whatever
Okay.
the case may be.
Anyone else?
Me personally, I haven't took that step to try therapy, but I feel like if I really need, like Fama said, I'm willing to try it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you guys foresee any barriers to going into or seeking out therapy for adolescents?
I feel like it can like get more easier.
It's getting easier.
Mm-hmm.
So normalizing it, you feel
Yeah.
like it's being more normalized,
Mm-hmm.
so it's easier to access it. So it's not so embarrassing or
Yeah.
Yeah.
we're being vulnerable.
Yes.
Absolutely. Where would you seek therapy?
Online.
Yeah.
Online? Okay. Yeah.
Me personally, if I need it, I can go to school. I can even come here to my uncle Usman if I need it to talk to him.
Anybody else? How would you seek therapy if that was something that you were looking for?
Well, actually, speaking as someone who is in therapy, I mean, I found that, I don't know, like in my case, therapy was something that was kind of, like I was told, yeah, you need to be in therapy. But I do know that there are many options out there, like if some, like Ami said, the internet, you know? There are ways to get connected, and I think it's definitely, you know, there's a lot more options, especially with the internet. Yeah,
So it's easier with
It's-
the internet.
it's a lot easier, yeah.
And if there's something I would like to just say about therapy is let's make sure that half the battle, it matters your relationship and your connection with the therapist. Just because your connection doesn't work, that doesn't mean that therapy doesn't work, right? Because you can be sitting in front of the best, I'm sorry?
Yeah, I'm just saying finding the right fit.
Exactly. Finding the right fit is something very important because you can be sitting in front of the best therapist out there, but if you don't have that connection, you know, it doesn't really matter. So don't feel obligated to stay with a specific therapist just because that session didn't work out or nothing's working out. Don't disregard it. Maybe that's one way that we can spread the message to our peers, you know, other adolescents who are on the fence of therapy.
Thank you so much. Oh, this is a wonderful time that we have had with our youth. Very candid, right? Very candid. And you guys have been vulnerable. You know, you've shown yourself as really vulnerable at this time. So thank you very much. Thank you, Nancy, for leading us in this wonderful time of our conversation with our youth. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, see it. Yeah, thank you, guys.